Akira.
Have you any hobbies?
My hobbies are fast cars and fast women.
Hobbies are healthy. They teach you things.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing edition of Around the UFL. I almost screwed that up, by the way. But hey, you know what? It's been a couple weeks. I'm getting a little bit rusty. But I'm the ref representing Pro Football Newsroom, the leaders in spring football news, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, do we got a big week for ya. We got a little thing called UFL training camp. We have UFL coaching staffs. We got some rosters, and might I mention, we're less than 5 weeks away from not only kickoff, but the biggest party of the Spring Stock 3 two-day event, March 30th, Arlington, Texas. Join us bright and early, 9 a.m. Central, outside of Choctaw Stadium in Arlington, Texas. And then day 2 for Houston for the first one, the one for 1-0, for the 12-0, as we head to our first UFL championship. And that, again, is in Houston, outside of Rice Stadium, probably 9 a.m. Central. I don't know, something like that. But stay tuned for details. We're less than 5 weeks away, and it's going to be fun because guess what they say? No tailgating allowed. Come and get me. Come and take it. That's what we say in Texas. Come and take it. And you know what? That's another reason to tune in. If you can't make it to Arlington, you better tune in because they might kick us out. I'd love to see them try, baby. So, either way, come and join us. We're going to be having fun. And if you can't make it in person, stay tuned online. We'll have the link shortly.
Oh, man, I think Ref might turn into prime Cam Newton right there. I don't know if anyone's seen that video circulating around, but
that would be me. I'm going to get the witch hat. I don't know if that's what you call it, but the crazy Bill hat thing that he has, I'm going to wear that to Spring Stock just in case anybody tries.
Fight off Choctaw Stadium security one by one. You might say we're the renegades of the broadcast space on March 30th.
There you go.
Zach's picking up.
I was teeing it up. I was ready. It was all for you, Jake. I saw that reaction. It was all for you.
I'll say,
only
though,
wins the Renegades are getting that weekend.
I'll say this. Well, I mean, we also have power rankings come up. Controversial power rankings, not just for me, but for other folks online. We're going to talk about that. But as you can expect, training camp, it's about to kick off. What is officially starts tomorrow, right, guys? Is that what's going on? Keep me honest here. Yeah. So you know what?
Seem to be tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So as expected, there's no guests this week. We didn't think there would. These guys, they're focused. They're out there, especially those Roughnecks. I'll be honest. I reached out to every one of them. I reached out to CJ Johnson, Coach CJ Johnson, and I said, Coach, break it down. Can we get any players? He said, what are you, crazy, man? We're out there to win. We're not just out there to win. We're out there to win 12-0. Rough them up. That's what he said to me. And so this is what we have to look forward to. So naturally, there's no guests this week. But beyond my freshly shaved face, we have a segregated group here. The no beards versus the beards this week. Maybe this will come into play with points. We'll have to see. First up, James Larson, as your title says, the only short guy left. How you doing today?
Yeah, I just don't feel whole today, a couple weeks now without my good friend Ducky. It's kind of like I'm a half person, he's a half person. So like, the two of us made one person. It really helped. So I don't know. I'm struggling, man. Hopefully my topics are on point today because it might get rough. We'll see.
We're going to have to call him in because, we need to, especially by the championship, or not the championship, but the first game of the weekend out there in Pantherland. It would be nice if you could get in for one ticket by doing the old trench coat move. Either I don't know who's going to get. I don't know who's the top. I don't want to assume.
Well, actually, no, because what I would typically do is just go in normally because I just think I'm a kid. So
there you go.
It's in for free, right?
Under 50 for free, yeah.
Perfect. Well, you know what?
A little self-deprecating humor on here.
So our other Panthers fan from Panther Shadow, I really do appreciate you putting that in because I still do want to say thank you. I appreciate it. But Jake, my man, how you doing? I know you got to be feeling pretty good because you're not playing the Gambler or the Roughnecks week 1. So at least you don't have anything to worry about there. But how are you feeling going into training camp?
No, I'm a little disappointed about that. Like, just trending up. Like last year was just gonna, be a repeat of that. No, training camp. I'm a little bittersweet seeing a couple of these players that I was hoping to see start camp not make it, but otherwise feeling good. The signings over the weekend have me pretty pumped. The signings that we get to see last night are got me excited. Love to have Lance Lenore back, so feeling good. Otherwise, feeling
nice. Yeah, I mean, big things happening all around the league. And, whenever there's roster moves, there's one guy we got to have on here. My man, Thorne, Nick Thorne. How you doing today? Again, you broke away from the crowds. You don't have the paparazzi around you, but you know what? I understand it's easier to focus without all the ladies, trying to throw you whatever it is they're trying to throw you.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get 1 week of no audio issues here. But in general, it's an exciting time. Spent all weekend updating rosters with numbers and all that sort of stuff, only for them to drop the whole list a couple hours ago. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but I'm excited to be here at least.
Hey, it's always good to have you. And my man, Zach Kyleman, only, less than 5 weeks, not only spring stock, not only UFL kickoff, but you get to come out to Texas. I don't know if it's your first time in Texas, but it'll be your first time with me in Texas. And you can already see my body's given up already. So are you looking forward to that?
Well, you got to be able to handle me coming out there. Come on, dude. Dude, get it together. Let's just say this will be the first time in a long time I've been to Texas for anything besides passing through. I think the last time I was in Texas, man, that had to have been, it's almost been 20 years now. I was in San Antonio, Texas a long time ago. Probably a little less than that, but, San Antonio, good city. Now I get to enjoy checking out Arlington and also Houston in a weekend. Fun times ahead. And maybe we have to be running from the law. A little renegade in me. It's getting my adrenaline flowing just thinking about it.
I'm
Zach,
looking
last
forward
time
to
you were
it.
in Texas was when the XFL 1.0 was going on.
Yeah.
Almost, give or take.
Yeah. So, a couple things that I'm looking forward to is one, you get to actually, not that, I say, let me rephrase how I'm about to say this. Memphis barbecue is fine. It was good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. There, I said it. But now you get to eat good real barbecue. Not good barbecue, real barbecue, man. And I'm telling you.
Me on this Texas barbecue now. It has been it's been about 6 months plus.
It's out of this world. It's out of this world. I'll tell you, if we have a chance to get it both Saturday and Sunday's Easter. So, but we will get it. We will get it. If I have to send my wife there, well, we're at a game on Saturday. We're doing it. We're doing it. The other thing, on the way, naturally. So, we're driving the Refla from Houston to Arlington. And, we get to stop by on the way there. A flipping Buc-ee's.
Damn right.
So we're going to charge that car, but while we're charging that car, we're also getting everything. I'm getting it all. I'm getting brisket breakfast sandwich. I'm getting a brisket sandwich. Sign me up. Beef jerky all day and all night. But anyway, before we get into the fun stuff, which is what everybody's here to talk about, the UFL, I can see the rest of the panel's like, all right, guy, get it over with. Move. You all wanted me to be the host this week. Well, hey, this is what you get. Before we get into the good stuff, though, folks, let's be honest. Here's what we need you to do. I need you to look right below this video, click the like button. If you're not already, subscribe and click the bell. It builds morale. It makes all the good things happen. Hey, we're going into training camp. You want your team to be strong, ready to go, on the field, winning the championship. Well, I'll tell you, you all can't be the Roughnecks, but you can get some morale by clicking the bell right now, and it also lets you know when we go live, like we are right now, every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, for Around the UFL, as well as spring stock, as well as summer stock, and as well as everything in between. And you do not want to miss it. We're getting right into the good stuff right now, so join us. Now, if you are one of the crazy people that listens to the audio version, hey, I don't fault you. I get it. I wouldn't want to look at my face either. Here's what you guys can do. You can leave us a review. That would do us a solid. I always forget to ask. And of course, the social media drill. Around the UFL, UFL podcast, PFN Newsroom, boom, 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 UFL Newsroom. You get it. You got it. Bing. All right, let's get into the news, guys. Training camp begins. We saw it all over social media this weekend, which God bless our social media teams. You got to love them. They came with the content. They showed us the onboarding process, all of the different players kind of getting on the field for the first time, signing their paperwork, all sorts of things. Initial thoughts. This is something we've seen with both the USFL, with the XFL in the past. I think it was expected, but it was, again, you kind of learn with anything spring football, nothing that you see is guaranteed to happen again the next season, but we're still seeing the content push. Thoughts on, I guess, everything we've seen so far, either on social media or just kind of word of mouth or whatever. Who wants to go? I'll start it like that.
I can jump on this first.
Okay.
So the thing that really stood out to me was there was one specific piece of content that the San Antonio Brahmas did that I thought was amazing. And it was like almost like a pseudo Hard Knocks kind of thing, which was when the players first arrived, they had a camera on Wade Phillips and Mark Lillibridge and interacting with the players for the first time. And I loved that, like hearing the little conversations that they're having with the players, and some of them were, reunions, some of them were, meeting for the first time. And I really wish other teams kind of leaned into that a little bit more, see a little bit of these guys' personality. Because to me, like, especially on day one, I think it was like Friday or Saturday, like that was far and away the best content I saw from any team.
Mm-hmm. So Zach, it looked like you had something, a thought there as well.
Well, I'll tell you one I always enjoy. There's two specific ones I like. First off, social media wise, if you've ever seen the ones where it's about, you start with one item and you try and trade up for something, I thought that one was a great job. They did that on the UFL sub, starting with a paperclip of all things. And besides that, my other favorite, and I also love these from the last few years, the XFL did this one last year, and I thought it was great idea-wise, is passing off the mic and kind of the camera to someone of a certain topic. So like you saw AJ McCarron pass it off, and company, others passing it to different people in the league. That's good content. I like seeing quality content, and I like seeing the working in and outs of different stuff that's going on with the league, including, and we'll say this because it's on our notes, Daryl Johnston kind of giving a recap of the entire thing. I thought that was the best clip of the entire weekend, was saying, hey, here's onboarding, but here's what it took to get us here. And even the fact, and I think James would agree on this especially, that they're in a better spot than last year for both these leagues. They're already ahead of schedule.
Sorry, I had to unmute there. Yeah, I totally agree. I love seeing Daryl on film. Always I feel like he's a staple of the spring football scene at this point. That's a guy that's been involved as an executive for the last 5 years plus. So he knows what he's doing. The league's in great hands with him at the head of football operations. But yeah, just to expand on the social media things, it's been great to see a lot of content. For a long time, we didn't have much content from any teams at all, especially, leading up to the merger. There wasn't much of anything being pushed out. And of course, there wasn't much to push out because everyone was in this waiting phase, basically. Mm-hmm. So it's great to see all these players finally in camp. It gives that feeling, once you see the videos of the guys practicing, the coaches getting at it with the players, encouraging them, breaking down after practice, stuff like that. It's like, all right, it's time to rock and roll. Like, we're ready to get this season underway. It's been a long, long summer. This summer has felt so long just because of everything that happened between then and now. So to see the content and the high quality content, like you mentioned, coming from these social admins, gotta give them a round of applause because they've done a great job.
100%. Well, yeah, I mean, that you bring up a very good point. This summer has felt especially long, summer, fall, kind of going into the new year, because it was, initially we were going into season 3 USFL, season 2 XFL. Then the word of the merger came out, and it had a big kind of push of news at the beginning. And then it, as we all know, everything went silent until about the end of the year, beginning of the year, depending on how you look at it. But within, and this is the thing I've always said too in the past, I think we all fall victim to it. I know in the past, where we look at things and you're like, oh my God, this announcement's not out yet. What are they going to do? How are they going to rebound this and that? But gee, if you think back now, they got all the coaches, we got all the teams, we got all the locations. Tickets are on sale, I think, finally for all the different teams. Not yet, no.
No,
Okay.
not enough for the Panthers yet. That hopefully this week is what the word I got last week.
Right. Well, they at least have season tickets, though, right? That's going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
still need those single game.
For sure. So, for the most part, everything's kind of coming together when it needs to. And hopefully we'll see a smooth transition from training camp into the season. And I think, the how do I say this in the right way? I guess the benefit of having all of the cuts that we'll see is having a pool of players that are going to be able to jump in mid-season if you need, whether it's an injury, an emergency, or any other reason. It does happen. People do get cut mid-season. You never like to see it, but it does happen. I think that's going to be what will be most interesting to see as we get into like week 3, week 4. We saw this in the USFL. We saw it in the XFL last year too, where we saw mid-season additions. And the cuts are going to be brutal. I think it's going to be some of the names we'll see on there just because of what we've talked about leading into this episode is this is 16 teams going into 8. And even now we're at 75-man rosters. So you're going to get 20 plus cut from that on each team. There's going to be some names that are questionable that I wouldn't doubt if we see some return back in the season. But as it stands now, so we're live. It's Monday. Conditioning tests concluded today, and first official practice is tomorrow. So if you're listening to the audio version today, but Tuesday the 27th. The one thing I do hope to see out of these practices is, and I do think we'll see it, is more of this social content. I want to see the teams out there making awesome defensive plays, getting like an interception, even if it's on their own team against team, right? If it's Roughnecks offense versus defense. And that's the one I'm most interested to see, because if you put the number one offense versus the number one defense against each other, I mean, it feels like it's going to be a 0-0 game, right? Like the offense is so good, but it's that defense.
That Roughnecks defense is one of the most imbalanced groups, I think, in the entire league. And,
we're like so much better than everybody else's defense. Where it's like, I don't even know how they let it in the video game. You're right, James. We are that unbalanced. We're unfair. And it's a good thing Luke's not here this week, by the way, because he'd probably have something else to say about the Stallions. And sure, maybe, okay, fine, in the USFL. But hey, buddy, this ain't the USFL. This is the UFL, and the Roughnecks run this league. Rough them up. Anyway, what was that, James?
To finish my point, the Roughnecks defense is going to be really interesting to watch this year, because I put out a piece recently on their defensive line. And I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of talent they have there. They've got Toby Johnson, all USFL twice. They've got Chris Odom, who is the defensive player of the year back in 2022. They picked up Adam Rodriguez, Olive Sagapolu, Keontae Shaw. The list goes on and on and on. But then in the secondary, it's not that it's a not talented group, but it's a lot of guys that haven't proven themselves. It's a lot of guys that the general manager, Lionel Vitale, went out and picked up a lot of new talent this offseason, and he opted to protect a lot of them throughout this process. So it'll be interesting to watch some of these guys like Elijah Rogers, Markel Roby, etc. Will these guys be able to perform at a high level? Because there's a lot of talented defensive backs that are not on a roster right now. So I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, can these guys compete at a high level? And I think they're very talented guys, but I was questioning a couple of those moves when we still had 16 teams, and now we have 8. So I think that'll be a storyline to really watch unfold is, will this secondary, it's a very young secondary, and it's not one that has a lot of experience. We'll see how that goes in camp.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, they're hungry. And, at the end of the day, a win's a win. Does it need to be pretty? This is the thing. You kind of need a couple of the new guys on there just so the ring guy, doesn't feel as old. You get what I'm saying? You kind of, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so.
Anything to make the Roughnecks sound better, but hey.
I don't have to try hard, I'll tell you that. I mean, do I have to say much more than rough them up, 12-0? We're all going to see. You're all going to see. You all think I'm crazy now. Even you, Thorne, you were, even the other day, weren't you saying, oh, I was just laughing about the Roughnecks special teams, I think, right? Was it you that was, or maybe it wasn't?
No, that
Okay.
was our boy Nosebuzz.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Either way, you're all going to see. You'll all see.
Shout out Noah.
I'll step in for Luke Miller here, and all I gotta say is 2 rings. So just being honest,
I mean, you look at the Stallion secondary and you look at the guys that they've picked up this offseason, not only just from a standpoint of the free agents, but the guys that they brought in through the dispersal draft process. I mean, they got the number 1 safety in the USFL in Mark Gilbert. Then you look at a couple of other guys they got. They got James Wiggins. They got Kenny Robinson, the former Battlehawks legend from 2020. He's been in the NFL the last couple of years. Neville Clark from the Breakers. Chris Jackson from the NFL. Terrell Bonds. Ike Brown. They still have Lorenzo Burns. They still have JoJo Tillery. They have TJ Carter. Like, Channing Stribling. Like, it's insane. I cannot believe what Zach Potter has done. So we'll see. We'll see. But I compare that secondary group, and then I look at the Houston Roughnecks, who their top guy is arguably Jeremiah Johnson, who is a great, great cornerback. But again,
The best.
all those new guys, Jainan Lindell, Richard Bowens, Elijah Rogers, Colby Richardson, Javon Hicks. Will these guys be able to perform? We'll see.
We will see. We will see. And you will hear it from me first. I can't wait.
I'm sure.
Zach, you
I'm
know
not a
that
betting man, but that would certainly be a bet I'd be willing to place for sure.
Zach thinks he's excited to go to another Roughnecks game. Well, you see, you've never been to a Roughnecks game with me. You were at that. The only one I remember was the first Gamblers game we won when the Gamblers beat the Panthers. I think that was the only Gamblers game we went to. Is that right?
I've gone to others, but that's the only one you and I have gone to.
See,
the
Zach,
other game I've gone to get.
No, call him out on that. Don't let him get away with that.
Whoa. I was trying to get
year.
some. He snuck underneath.
But yeah, no, you're right. We only went to that first Roughnecks game. We didn't make the second one. Actually, there wasn't a second one. That was a preseason game, week 1 last year. So
okay, I see how it is. I see what's going on. No. I was trying to mention that the last any Houston game you and I sat at was in Memphis, and then the last Houston game before that I sat at was watching Houston give up a Hail Mary from Kyle Sloter to Jonathan Adams in the corner in 2022. That was a hell of a game. Me and my dad had a great time.
Yeah,
great finish.
I don't remember much of that first season, especially around the fourth quarter. That's when I don't know, something happened. But I think if I remember correctly, we were winning when I was watching the game close to the end of every game. That I can say for sure. We were winning near the end of the game.
Almost every week.
Dude, that was hard.
So training camp going on here. Practices coming up tomorrow. We got finalized rosters of all things too added in. I'll be honest with you, some of these extra pieces that were revealed via the PR or via social, by the way, if we want to tie in the social aspect of it, some last minute signings that pretty solid ones. And we're got a few we're highlighting on here. I'll just rattle through them, then we can kind of go one by one. So first off, Sal Cannella, he's back. That was a very late one, and a few of us caught that on social media this week and was very stoked to see that. It's a good pickup for the league.
Thorne.
Yes, exactly. I see you.
I pointed the wrong way. Whoops.
Don't look at me. I'm busy.
Yeah, there we go. I forgot my
James,
camera.
Now I
everyone
want to
with
try.
beard doesn't
Okay,
look alike. Come
that
on.
way. Okay, that way.
It's
I'm
all
gonna.
mirror.
It's tough.
Yeah, I know. See, I need to get reverse hats so I can mirror myself and it all works. Anyway, now I'm just go on. Zach. Go on.
Canella's back, star in both the USFL and the XFL. Lance Lenore's back,
And the Spring
with the
League.
Panthers. Yeah, and the Spring League. Hey, good for you. Good stopping me.
I just gotta throw it out there, man.
Look. The Mega Bowl deserves its rep. I appreciate that people keeping me honest. But yes, Cannella, excellent job he did in all three of those leagues. Lance Lenore's here. One that caught my eye, it's because, look, I play fantasy football. I rotate guys in and out. We do waiver wire guys. Kiki Cootie's one of those people that I, as a fantasy player watching NFL games, I actually usually flip him around. And he lands on DC, which I'll be honest, after another announcement this week from DC on Hammond being retired. Massive pickup to slide in right at the right time. Freaking-lutely. And we'll be discussing that further in detail. Another one that we wanted to highlight, and we'll recycle and get even deeper depth talk on this, Gabriel Floyd. And you guys made sure that we wanted to discuss him on here because of the story getting to the league this year. And actually, let's cycle this in, kick things off right now. And Nick, I think I'll get you going on this one. So Floyd's path here, pretty cool stuff, given how he has now landed in the UFL this season.
Yeah, and Jake can fill in some of the details for that too. It's his team, but Floyd, it was really interesting because I was at a game last night, and I'm kind of looking through, and I noticed he's from East Los Angeles College, and I'm like, I've never heard of that before, and I look into it, and I realized that not only was he at East Los Angeles College, that was in 2023, fall of 2023, this last season that just ended. So he's the first 2024 rookie to sign into the league, only one for now. I'm sure there'll be a few others as draft gets closer and after the draft especially. But that's interesting. And then on top of that, he medically retired in 2019 at Texas, bounced around, and East Los Angeles College is a JUCO school. So he's going straight from a JUCO school to professional football, which I don't think you really ever see. And normally there was a few guys in the XFL that were like that last year, but they went to tryouts and had a good workout. This guy's coming in just straight up sight unseen. So Jake can fill in any other interesting deal. I think he was going to Charlotte, right? He was supposed to.
Yeah, committed to Charlotte in December. He also had received an offer from Oregon, so it's not like he was only getting, offers from these low, D2 or FCS schools. You can get Power, 5. Well, I guess Power 4, Power 3 now with the new makeup of FBS, but. Yeah, I mean, he was coming in, getting, he was to be able to play some FBS ball, and he instead he got to make a jump right to the UFL, and love to see it. Like, everybody seems to be really super high on him, as far as I can see online. Obviously, you got the JUCO guys super excited to see that move, and it is a big thing. So love to see that. It's another thing, like as James likes to say, spring football works. So hopefully, this
and speaking of those offers, when I did a tiny bit of research on him, I believe he had an offer from Oregon to go play there. So, that I think is a really interesting storyline, that he opted not to go with Oregon and came to the UFL, and it's called the League of Opportunity for a reason. So.
Exactly right. And I mean, these are kind of the stories that I love to see with the league is, it's a little bit different now that you can kind of get paid in college. That was one of the differences back in 2020 when the XFL was coming around. But I was very excited to see, and we saw it with Kenny, right, is how many of these guys are going to decide, I'm going to skip college final year, go into the XFL, at least make a little bit of money. Circumstances have changed a little bit, but it's nice to see this move. And I think once we start seeing, pending the league sticks around 2, 3, 5 years, that becoming more and more of a viable, vision for some of these guys. And I think we'll see it more and more, especially when we see a success story out of it, where one of these guys ends up getting then drafted out of the UFL and into the NFL,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because Kenny Robinson is back in the UFL, and he was like the guy that kind of, he was the guy that paved the way for that to even be possible, because he could have played another year in college, and he opted to play in the XFL with the Battlehawks, got drafted by the Panthers, and he's been in the NFL the last couple of years. So, yeah, pretty neat stuff, and hopefully, like you said, we see more of it this upcoming year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, is any other thoughts on last minute signings before we go into camp stories, more camp stuff? Because again, it is training camp week. Although it hasn't really kicked off yet, there's still a lot to talk about.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think I want to recycle on the other three that we mentioned in the class. Specifically, I do think that the top one that really is drawing in a lot of more recent, I feel, is Kiki Kuti, just because of I think, caliber of player that he is, because he has had some great moments in roles he's filled in with the Texans over the years. And now he's coming down to this level. It's a guy that to me I thought would still be in the league at this point, and is taking a shot with the UFL to kind of go back up. Kind of someone I see as much like how Geronimo Allison last year with the XFL came in. Someone that I was like, man, I think he should be up there. And he's had time, he's had moments with, like, for his sake, Green Bay at the time. But he's using this to try and catapult somewhere else. Now Cootie's doing that, and I think the conversation here, and this is what a lot of not only just us we talk about, but, I see lots of more the casual audience that's been pouring in more once the UFL's getting closer to start, and I like that, by the way, is that you want to see guys that are like this, hey, maybe they aren't getting much time in the NFL, maybe they do take a little more risk, or, as I think all of us will especially be talking about the more this league continues to grow, is the futures deal guys, or the guys that are looking to maybe secure their spot next year. Hey, do I take the choice of playing over the futures contract or that slot if I can up my status or maybe get a more permanent residence with a team that way with more recent tape? And that's what I think this is kind of playing into that, is Cootie is a guy I felt like should be already in the NFL, he's staying in the NFL, but yet he's here. And I think that keeps opening the door. If you get more agents, more players talking like this, they go, hey, this ain't a bad option, or you have scouts that go, hey, this ain't bad to have a guy go back down, and maybe we missed something and we could have used this guy at some point, or we need this guy at some point again. Take that chance. It's not for everybody yet, but it keeps getting bigger. And that's what you want to see, is the more of the fringe guys, the guys you do know that maybe you think, man, if they could just get on the field, that would be great. And I love seeing guys like that. Ryan Knoll, for me, personal one for the Chicago Bears, fullback coming into the UFL this year. He's a guy that's for years, he's been like a freaking bruiser running back and has been in the Bears organization for several training camps. That's a dude I want to see get a lot of playing time. Another guy that I know you really need more time, and you were a legend at BYU for a while. So good to have him on. But that's what I see. Big story with him. Right. And a good need for DC too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do love seeing this, and it is nice seeing like Sal Cannella come back, Lance Lenore. I know, again, Jake, you're probably happy about that. Because again, Sal Cannella, I'm actually surprised. I mean, he could have really went anywhere he wanted, I think, with the way that the contracts worked. So yeah, I guess you win a championship somewhere. It's you probably feel like it's maybe you try to run it back. So, Coach Stoops is probably happy about that one. Any other thoughts on finalized camp rosters here?
Well, Jake, I think you had a couple comments about, well, for one, Lenore, and then two, just a couple of guys that we are seeing are not on the roster anymore.
Oh, yeah. Well, with Lance, I mean, kind of goes hand in hand with not seeing Terry Wright, though by his Instagram story, he does seem to, say that he will be back. Hopefully that means this year. Obviously, if you've seen anything on his social on Threads, he was taking a personal hiatus for the last 6 weeks. So seems unfortunately that it seems to be spilling over into UFL training camp. Hopefully Terry gets right and he can join us. But if not, I definitely think Lance is a good replacement for Terry in that spot. Obviously, he was a beast for the Panthers, even with Shea Patterson throwing him the ball in 2022. Lenore had quite a big impact. So glad to see him back. And then, like I said, with Kyle Kramer, was disappointed. Love seeing him, 2022, that addition midseason. Then he was solid again last year. Was really hoping that, we'd see that punting battle between him and Brock Miller. At this point, doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And then, the other guys, I haven't really seen a whole lot. I didn't really pay attention to the Stars last year, so I don't know too much about Taylor, so I can't be too upset about that. And then, we didn't get to see DeAnthony Jones, though he did seem to be pretty productive in college. So was looking forward to seeing what he could do at an edge. Not having him kind of hurts, but obviously with Gabriel, we got hopefully a good replacement there. So disappointing, but still hopeful
as well.
Yes.
So, an eventful week. We're like 5 weeks away from another new league. It's crazy because it's season 3 of the USFL, season 2 of the XFL. I'm especially excited to see how they treat the separate divisions. I know we don't really have this in the notes here, but for instance, when it comes to the rules, we know that there's a standard rule set, but we still have Mike Pereira. We still have, oh, geez, I forgot his name on purpose. What is his name? What is
Dean Blandino.
Dean Blandino. God, oh God, I hurt even hearing it. Sorry, Dean, old buddy, but seriously, it's true. I've heard him say too many things about the Lions that I didn't agree with. Whether he's right or wrong, that doesn't matter. Anyway, but since we have both of those guys here, are we going to see, USFL conference guys or vice versa? We're going to see Dean Blandino for the XFL home conference games. I hope so. I think that could be a nice touch. But these are all the things that we're going to get to speculate on, look forward to, and kind of learn as we head into the new league. We also have camp, which is here basically. So I don't know, thoughts on camp. I know we have a couple different things listed in the notes here on different things to watch in camp. I don't know. Yeah. What do you got? Oh, yeah.
I think something that's important for us to talk about too in camp is the coaching staffs were all announced last week.
Yeah.
So a lot of additions there. And obviously we knew who the head coaches were and we knew who a good handful of the coordinators were. But there's a lot of additions on the side because, this whole merger, again, it's a great thing for spring football, but at the same time, it's a bad thing because a lot of people lost their jobs. So we saw a lot of turnover on these staffs. But with all that said, there were really some fantastic additions made to some of these staffs. I'm sure everybody here has some comments on some of the guys that were added. A team that stuck out to me personally was San Antonio. Obviously they have a complete overhaul because you have Wade Phillips coming over, who was with the Roughnecks. So sorry, ref. He's out of there now, but I know you're fine with Curtis Johnson. Whatever.
CJ Johnson.
Yeah, CJ Johnson. But you got, Wade Phillips is over there now, and I'm so glad that AJ Smith is with him. Because AJ, man, he's the man. He's one of the most exciting offensive coordinators to watch in spring football. But a couple of changes there. You have Will Reed coming in as the defensive coordinator. Brian Stewart left, and he went to Middle Tennessee State. And an interesting storyline there is that AJ Reisig, who was on the Roughneck staff last year as the linebackers coach, he was in a position to take the DC job in San Antonio, and he opted to go with Brian Stewart in Middle Tennessee. He accepted the DC job there. So Wade Phillips went out and he picked up Will Reed, who actually interned with Wade back with the Dallas Cowboys in 2010. So that's an interesting storyline there. He's got a ton of experience. He's been coaching as a defensive coach for the last couple decades. That's a great pickup. And then Chris Achoof, he's the defensive line coach. That's a guy that has been in the NFL. He was with Baylor for a long time. He's just recently with Syracuse. Brings a ton of experience to that team. So I'm excited to see all these different staffs and just the overall chemistry we'll see from these teams. A lot of it stems from the coaching staff. We've seen I feel like a good example was last year. And again, this is not me trying to point fingers, but Orlando, there were some issues there with that coaching staff and just with the team as a whole. You could tell the organization from start to finish, just there wasn't really that chemistry whatsoever. And they reflected in their 1-9 record. So those will be some interesting storylines to watch unfold this year for sure.
I mean, when you're accidentally cutting players, yeah, there's a problem with the coaching staff. But, one other thing that's nice now that we have the coaching staffs finalized, I mean, there's a lot of logistics that go into the league beyond playing the game, getting to the game. And you got to imagine that the league has already sent people to size all of the coaches on the Roughneck staff's ring fingers so they can get that ready. Because, I mean, you might as well just have the rings ready to go. If you're going 12-0, we're going to rough them up. I don't know what the rings are going to look like, but you might as well get the sizes now. And, hey, if you weren't thinking about it, you don't even need to pay me. That one's on me. That's a free tip to all the folks at the UFL. Get the ring size, sign them up, get them ready to go. Get ahead of the game. You can even have them ready at the game. You just get the hat. Think if they got the ring too. Sign me up. Sign them up. Rough them up. 12-0. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, if no one else has any other comments, another team I do want to point out quick is St. Louis.
I do have one thing with St. Louis. The one coach that really stood out to me was Gino Gradkowski.
You read my mind. You go ahead and you take this.
Partially because, okay, perfect. Because he's brothers of Brad Gradkowski, who's the OC, and he's taken over as the offensive line coach. And I'm familiar with him as a Ravens fan from his time playing for us. Hopefully he's a little bit better of a coach than he is a player, but in general, that was a very interesting one for me. It's cool seeing some of these NFL players start to get into coaching. I don't think he really has much experience before this, so that was interesting.
He did coach a little bit the last couple of years, offensive line.
Okay.
Gosh, the school's escaping my mind, but he has coached the last couple of years.
Solid. Yeah.
Coaching staffs. Zach, which ones stick out to you? What's the best? I mean, we all know it's the Roughnecks, but I mean, if you had a second.
I mean, you want me to talk Houston? Because I wasn't going to.
No, go for it. Let it all loose. We'll get receipts for later. It'll be fine. No. Bring it all up. Bring it all up now, buddy. Let's go.
He just wants me to bring it up. I have no problems with the staff, by the way, so no receipts you're going to be pulling.
Good. That's what I thought.
Just going to lay it out there. I'm all right. I'm fine with it. I was actually going to make a comment on, I think Memphis is one of the most unique for the structure, just because it is, yes, you are bringing a lot of familiar faces, of course, back from New Orleans in terms of with John DeFilippo's crew, but I do want to see how that gels with like some familiar faces. Having Carnell Lake stay there as defensive coordinator, we already knew this was coming, but I do find that as a good dynamic for this crew to be combined. Also, for the Stallions, and credit, I've made my point on multiple shows about how I feel about this, and yet, the Renegades kind of, had their way this last year. But, co-offensive coordinators, now credit, that could mean several things. Philip Montgomery's doing other items, doing running backs, tight ends too. But I did find interesting that we were going to have a co-offensive coordinator situation in a way in Birmingham. Do I personally think that, and credit, I wish Luke was here to kind of talk a bit more on this or his thoughts here. Do I personally think Skip Holtz is calling the plays? Yes, I do. But I do find it fascinating that we have a second cook in the kitchen a little bit for a two-time championship team, mind you, coming in this year. I thought that was something that I couldn't leave this discussion without talking about that in particular. Speaking of code offensive and defensive, credit for different reasons. The Renegades, streamlining the process this year. You won a championship, I think, hey, good for you. I still felt that was a problem last season for you guys. You guys got things in order, and credit, some guys moved on to other opportunities, mind you. That's part of the reason why. But look, I think to me, I've always been one guy gets the role, focus on that role is how it is. Just a unique dynamic that Birmingham does have Mr. Montgomery helping out with that coordination, if you will. So I don't know, something to keep an eye on. I don't know if it'll be that significant. I think Skip still calls plays, but I found that fascinating in the final coaching staff options.
I'll tell you this. I bet you if they weren't in the same division as the Roughnecks, they wouldn't go out and try to get a second offensive coordinator. I'll tell you that much. Go on, James. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Arlington, because I think part of the reason why we're seeing them on the cut down there is because Stoops had a huge staff. Like, he had
massive.
A ton of guys.
Yeah.
And obviously, with the new merger and some of the structure that we have here, there's limits on the amount of guys that you can have on your staff. So part of that is, a guy like Jonathan Hayes, who has been in this scene for a long time. He picked up a job, I think, I forgot what the high school name is, but he picked up a job at a high school as like a general manager there, basically. And then Tim Lewis, he moved on. He's with Boston College, I believe, or
yes.
Yeah, so he's out there in Boston. And actually, funny enough, another guy who went to Boston was on their staff, Connor George. He was the offensive line coach, so he's up there as well. But I think it'll be interesting to watch this unfold this year, where you have Chuck Long taking over, and it felt like Jonathan Hayes was running the offense for the most part last year. He was the guy that we saw on the screen a lot more. So now Chuck Long gets his chance, and that's a guy that's obviously very talented at what he does. So it'll be interesting to see that unfold. But we do have a Hayes brother still in the league. Jay Hayes is the DC there, so we're.
Yeah, that was one of the more interesting ones, but it makes sense. He found another job elsewhere, but it is kind of sad to see, because he was in 2020 the head coach of the Battlehawks. He came back in 2023 as working as a coordinator for the Renegades, and you know what? Now he's on to new things. But like you said, we still have Jay Hayes, also with some experience from the Spring League. Sign him up. The Spring League.
Jousters legend.
Yes. I mean, people like to give the Spring League a hard time, but we're still seeing people from the Spring League playing and coaching today. And God, you know me, I'd love to get Glanville out on some sideline somewhere. Sign him up.
job. He had accepted a job with the D2 school.
Yeah.
A couple
we
months ago.
did we did get robbed of him being in the MLFB. Just throwing that in there for some fun, guys. Could
Got
have
that
had
Jubilee,
could have had it
though.
all.
At least we got a good old Jubilee.
Patience is strength.
Dude, one of these days, though, one of these days, these guys, you wait, that MLFB Discord chat, one day, random day, is going to blow up again because somebody's going to figure out that there's a hustle to it, and there's going to be like a whole new like row of suckers. I feel bad for them. So I say this is not financial advice, but I'm not telling you to buy it. I'm actually telling you the opposite, which this is allegedly. Anyway, don't
safe
sue me.
harbor
I don't know. Whatever I have to say.
message. Something. I mean,
But one of these days, I'm waiting for the next press release. They kind of died down. Have we gotten an MLFB press release in a while? We didn't get I don't know.
the only thing we had.
I don't know if they have the budget for that anymore.
Yeah.
Check the Discord. By the way, great. Another reason to be in the Discord because we have fun getting updates on that. Someone did ask Frank Murtha directly and said that he had to get the funds together. So take that as you will. That's the last thing I've ever heard. That was like last week.
Get that stock pumping. Dude, 1 cent to 2 cents. That's 100% your money back.
Rev up those financial engines, people.
Anyway.
one other coaching change I wanted to point out really quick is with the defenders who were able to keep most of their staff intact. You know, they got Reggie Barlow there. They've got Greg Williams. They've got Fred Keiss. OC. Wide receivers coach Alvance Robinson moved on. They brought in Sean Anderson, who's obviously has a lot of talent. That's a guy that I think it's a great addition to their unit. But it will be interesting to watch the defenders' wide receiver room as a whole because, like Zach was talking about earlier, you know, a lot of guys that aren't there anymore. Lucky Jackson, Chris Blair, Josh Hammond, who retired. You know, these are all guys that Alvance Robinson did a great job coaching. You know, those guys all went on, had NFL opportunities. Now Hammond retired. So we'll see. Can Sean Anderson come in with a lot of new faces and replicate the success that this group had last season? It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah. I mean, again, it bodes in their favor. They're not in the same conference as the Roughnecks, so that's only one loss they'll take from us there. But, you know, I still think, you know, it is going to be – this is why it's going to be so fun to watch these teams because we're sitting here kind of really analyzing the rosters and the coaches. But even when you put two of these teams against each other, I think we're going to see some battle house games. I think we have the opportunity to see some drag them down, beat them up, slow, like defensive mean games. And then I also think that we could see two teams pop off offensively. You know, so this will be an interesting season to watch. And quite honestly, I'm always of the mindset defense wins championships, right? Defense is the best offense. And so if you can get that team that was similar to what the Maulers were last year in this league, you might be able to get yourself to the championship again. We'll see.
Sounds like
No Jaron Horton, so
I know. Well, that's the damn shame of it all, really. Here, guys, we've talked about. I know we spent a lot of time on players that didn't make the cut, but Jaron Horton not making the cut still blows my mind. Again, hopefully there's a season 2. I don't even want to speculate if there's expansion, but I do hope that there is a spot open for him, whether it's, I'll even say a head coach spot, but at minimum, defensive coordinator. I mean, I get it. There's only 8 teams to work with, and there's coaches that are keeping a lot of their existing staffs and kind of mixing it up. But yeah, that is kind of the biggest shame of it. But
yeah, and I feel like, you know, when this whole process was going down and we knew that Brian Stewart wasn't returning with Houston, and then of course Wade Phillips jumped to San Antonio, I really thought that could have been a perfect landing spot for Jaron. You know, I really thought that would have been the go-to spot. But I think the reason why Wade Phillips went with Will Reed is partially because, one, they have a working relationship already, and 2, Phillips is a defensive guy. And he's going to be doing a lot. He's going to have a big influence on that defense. And I feel like he probably wanted somebody that would work alongside him rather than someone that would bring in their own schemes. So that's my assumption. That's more speculation than anything. But that would be my take on why Jaron didn't get that spot. Because I don't understand how someone who is, 1, the assistant coach of the year in the USFL, and 2, statistically had the best defense with statistically the worst offense in the USFL and made it to the championship. So, hey,
Now,
hopefully, like you said, hopefully next year something opens up.
And think of how wild it would have been for the Brahmas, because we've already talked about in the past how AJ Smith was kind of one of the stars on that team, just from the video they'd show of him up in the booth, kind of pseudo playing Madden with real players out there in the field. And I would say Jaron was probably the closest counterpart to that experience in the USFL. And so just imagine if they had both of these guys on their coaching on their team. I mean, you would have had fun on both sides of the field, at least, even if nothing's happening in the game, just from watching those two alone. So it's a damn shame. You know what? I'll say it because it didn't happen. I may have switched my teams if that had happened. I may have been Brahma'd out. Me and the Brahma, what's the lady on the show?
Brahma Babe.
Brahma Babe. Me and her, we'd be going to the Brahma Prama. We'd be, all the things. I'd move to San Antone. I'd be all Alamo'd out, signed up.
definitely saving this for.
But unfortunately, they won't go 12-0 now. So
everybody get those receipts.
saving this. Clip it.
Ref has a ton of receipts from this one. I'll tell you that right now.
yeah, winning like ones that I'm going to use later in the year will be like, see, this is me saying 12-0. God, if we're 11-0, I don't even know if I can watch the championship game. I'm going to tell you, because I'll be so scared to jinx anything. I'm so superstitious when it comes to sports. But anyway, we won't really have to worry. 12-0, rough them up, all in.
I feel like spring football history is not on your side with the 11-0 claim either. So now, that's even if it's a good year, by the way. That's ambiguous just towards history of the sport in general. It's hard to get perfect records in professional football, no matter what level you have the skew. Hey guys, good camp stories, right? I did let the chat know, by the way, that hey, submit your favorite camp stories. We got several that I've listed on here, or you guys have listed on here from the panel, and we'll feel free kind of make this a bit of more roundtable as we get closer towards the back half of the show and our power rankings coming up. But I did find a few of these stories that I think I want to be watching for. First things first, and I think, if we're talking rosters, I look at like competitive, like high quality merger positions that really have tight fits in terms of things like this. I'm telling you right now, slot receiver is one of the positions that is the most jam-packed in this league. If I'm looking at the UFL roster construction, courtesy of Mr. Thorne here, plenty of teams have that slot position in particular. Now, correct, receivers competitive generally, but the slot, I'm telling you, that spot alone, I'm watching with like a freaking like hawk level eyesight for the fact that it's got razor thin margins for I think who's going to be picked up. Abso-freaking-lutely. That kicks things off. Any other stories, guys? Or am I lying to you? Do I have an incorrect take? Because I think that's one I'm going to be watching in particular.
I'll jump in quick. I think the bottom line is every single position group on every single team is going to be a story, because 75 down to 50. And again, this is unprecedented territory for spring football, because the USFL, they had 58 in their training camps. The XFL, they had 66. But we look at that structure, we had 16 teams. So we knew a lot of those fringe guys that were going to get cut. Some of those guys that we were expecting, like, yeah, this guy, it's a long shot for him to make the roster. Now, with 8 teams, 75 on each, like, I look at every single name, and I'm like, man, these guys all deserve a roster spot. I mean, at least for the most part. So I feel like every story is going to be interesting. Quarterback, obviously that's a huge one. And I think there's going to be a lot of questions surrounding some of these teams like Arlington. You got Luis Perez, who just helped you win a championship. It's a guy, he's proven it pretty much at every single level in spring football. But now you've got Lindsey Scott. That's a guy from Incarnate Word that just put up insane numbers there. You got Holton Allers that is coming fresh off an NFL opportunity with the Seattle Seahawks. And that's a guy who had tremendous statistics at ECU. So that, to me, is probably the biggest one on, because that's a defending champion that has a big question at the QB spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like Louise, if I was the coach, Louise would get the start. But again, training camp may tell a different tale, right? Luis had the luxury of kind of, he started the season with the Vipers, God bless his soul. But, one could make an argument that, well, the Vipers didn't do too hot. And, he came in at the end of the season. He got hot at the right time of the season and, helped the Renegades get there. So I could see the argument of not bringing him in. But I think the other part that we should focus on, too, though, is Luis Perez he brings that historic spring ball knowledge, if you will, right? We talked about earlier, the Spring League, XFL, AAF, and he did pretty good in every one of those leagues, right? He was in the Mega Bowl in Houston, Texas with 1,000,000 degrees and 20 people, but he was there keeping it competitive. And almost won that game. It was right down to the wire. When then we look forward to the USFL, okay, maybe not as successful there, but going into the XFL, he made it happen. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm more curious, naturally about Houston, because I think there's a lot of people that are making the assumption that Reed Sinnett is going to get the starting job, and he might. That might be what happens. But I think Nolan Henderson, he's shifty enough. And that's why I'm super excited to see some of the footage that comes out of camp over the next week, just to see, okay, maybe that gives me an indicator on who is going to be the guy that is winning the 12 games for me this season. Is it going to be Reed? Is it going to be Nolan Henderson? Or is it going to be one of the, somebody completely different? But I'm keep the receipt. That's fine. I'll be fine to be wrong on this. But I think Nolan Henderson is the one to watch. And especially when you get out on the field, you know what? You see this in the NFL with new players. Cam Newton is a great example of this. Cam Newton was a baller in the first season of his career. But then every season it got a little bit worse because people knew how he played. People knew his play style. But he caught him off guard that first year. And I feel like Nolan Henderson, and I'm not even BSing right now. This is no bias. I think he is one of these guys that could go out there and shock people, similar to PJ Walker. I said it, similar to PJ Walker, who, if I must remind everybody, went undefeated, 5-0. Rough him up. It's not just a coincidence. It's almost a fact at this point.
Thorne, can you please set him straight?
I'll give.
Let's talk about a different team, maybe. Okay, yeah.
If we want to talk this whole QB section, I got top and credit. People can say wrong. Jake and I think you, me, all Panthers guys are in this category too. I got 5 teams max, and that's if I'm throwing in San Antonio into this mix that all have quarterback discussion. I feel is not like straightforward. Who's the starter? That's how I have it. 4, I think, are very much half the league being ones I think are up in the air QB battles. Mm-hmm. And besides Houston being one of them, I have Michigan, Arlington, Birmingham right now as that. I personally feel San Antonio, it's Quentin Dormady, but I feel that's fringe because they do have a bit of a non-familiarity with who's there. But I feel like between those other 3, Michigan, Arlington, Birmingham makes the one that a lot of people are talking about right now, specifically, with a lot of them going to Matt Corral, like we talked about last time, being the big key. But Michigan, as we've talked, Jake, and you and I and everyone has seen in the Discord, Danny Etling, EJ Perry, that's going to be tight competition by itself. And those are 2 names that have had some decent NFL experience back and forth, and one that I think has to prove some doubters wrong that it wasn't just a 2-game fling last year for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if he had a few more games under his belt, I think maybe there'd be less, emphasis on the QB battle with Michigan. But you also can't count out Davis Cheek, which, by the way, happy birthday if you're watching, Davis. Hope you're enjoying your first week in camp with the Panthers. So yeah, realistically, I think we have those 3 quarterbacks. If we really drill down, I think it's the 2 that you had mentioned that are going to go head-to-head. Sorry, Lewerke. Not sorry. Yeah. Go Blue. But I think it's going to be at least stuck with the NFL for a while. He just came fresh out of, with the Packers. So I think he's definitely got the juice to be able to be QB1, obviously with the enthusiasm that Perry gave the Panthers fan base, myself included, last year with winning week 10 and then dropping 370 yards on the USFL's league best defense. He gives us a lot of promise. He played well for the Texans in the preseason. So, and the Jaguars picked him up for a reason. So, yeah, it's between those two guys. I really, honestly, I don't know who's going to win it. Like, my heart says Perry because he knows, but then again, he doesn't know the offense any better because he has Marcel as OC, whereas last year he had Marty. So, honestly, it's whoever you want to go with.
Yeah. Sorry, had to watch Chat try and rip down Michigan is all I could tell you.
Are you commenting on our friend Arlington Lane's latest comment? Let me just put it back on the screen here. Oh, hold on. There we
That's
go.
Mike making a logical point.
I like Arlington's take because they're going to be so bad that they're going to count 2 of those games as 2 losses. Anyway.
I can't wait for the show after week 1 when I'm host after that Panthers W.
Nick, any insight on some of your stories? And also, what do you think about this one point here? Familiar faces versus newcomers? Because you got a lot of things merging together. So I'm curious if we talk politics in football. I don't like doing it much, but I am curious what everyone's thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I think there, especially at the quarterback position, is staying on topic a little bit here. There's certainly a lot of that, and I think in general, I've noticed this, especially with me making the articles in the last week of like 50-man roster projections, which I did for every team. If you want to check those out, the fan bases really are attached to the guys that have been there before. And I think people sleep on the new additions a lot. The 2 examples, Birmingham, not as much. Obviously, people are really hyped about Corral. Mm-hmm. But you do still see a lot of people being like, well, Jamar's definitely still the starter. And I just don't think that's the case. I also think Adrian Martinez has a shot to get into that mix. The team that I really look at, and I'm like, I think people are assuming a little too quickly that the guy who they know is the starter is San Antonio with Quentin Dormady. Ooh. I think he'll probably be the starter. If you look at my rosters, I have him penciled in at QB1. But let's not pretend like everything was, sunshine and roses with Dormady last year. He was in a rough spot. Orlando wasn't great, but there were some rough patches. For every DC game, I think it was Arlington, he had 5 turnovers, I want to say. That's just off the top of my head. I could be wrong
are
which
so
game that was.
Nick, you're so based to bring that up. It was 5.
Okay, yeah. So with that quarterback room, the question is who's going to go after him. I think Chase Garbers is of the 2. I like Tom Flacco, go Tigers, but he's been out of football for a little bit. Chase Garbers has been on the Raiders practice squad for like 2 years now. He's a borderline NFL guy. I'm not so quick to write him off as a potential starter for that room. And there's examples of that everywhere. I think there's guys, and not just at quarterback, of like, oh, we definitely think, I'm not going to name names, but like we have this guy who's been here for 2 years. The league's different now. There's only 8 teams instead of 16. That guy who was a starter for 2 seasons, he could still be a starter in this league. He could not be. And I also think that like the level of talent is higher in this league than any other, like combined. There's guys in this league, guys like a Matt Corral. I don't know if a Matt Corral joins an XFL or a USFL in years past, Those kind of guys tend to want to stick around the NFL for an extra couple of years. So I think people need to understand that like things are different, and that just because EJ Perry was there last year doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the starter or whatever quarterback you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, Nick, just because that was one of the points that I was going to make. That, don't get me wrong, Quentin Dormady is a very talented quarterback, and I think that he has the emphasis on the potential to be a star in the league in AJ Smith's scheme. But we have to. I've seen some people saying that Quentin's like the best quarterback in the UFL, and just like,
yeah, I can't go that far either.
Like he's great. He had a couple phenomenal games with Orlando, but let's not act like Nick mentioned, with the season on the line against Arlington, 5 turnovers. He lost them that game. He lost them a few games that season. So, I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's got a lot of talent, but he's not. The couple people that I've seen that have said that he's the best quarterback in the league, I just don't know how you can. I don't know how you can say that.
Yeah, especially when he's not playing for the Roughnecks.
Oh, damn. I swear.
Full
I
circle.
swear. You know what? Perfect time. Let's throw it in. It's power ranking time, baby. Let's get at it. I know that the ref here's been looking forward to this all day. We all have been looking forward to this. This is going to be a good debate. This is going to be a great debate.
Do we have the graphic we can put up?
Oh, man. Now you're going to put me on the spot. Let me find it real quick. While we're pulling it up, first, I do want to say, Jake, you did an awesome job on the graphic. I think it looks real slick. I think it looks real nice. Top notch. Jake on top, as always. But, yeah, clearly there's an error on this. There's a glaring error. And
My spreadsheet formula's off a bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
You better
And
check the formula.
honestly, it kind of works in your favor, but I feel like this is backwards. But let me see if I could get this on the screen easily without doing anything stupid here. Share screen. There we go. Let's see. Does this work? Hey, it worked. Look at this.
There we go.
So, okay, as you can see.
It's a zigzag pattern, by the way, for those that are...
Yeah,
Left
so
to
this
right,
is
left to
1,
right, yeah.
2. Oh, you don't see my mouse on the screen, but it's left to right, left to right, left to right, left
Can
to
you
right.
click on the image, get it a little bit?
Yeah, good
There we
call.
go.
Good call. So, I put the Roughnecks at number 1, right? And this is not bias. This is not
No bias,
a lie. This
Shockingly
is
objective.
just reality. This is reality. I put the Roughnecks at number 1. But everybody that I work with here at Newsroom is so much. You guys are haters because I think other than one, I think Max Holbrook is the only one that didn't put him at number 8, and he put him at 7. And
Hey,
so
I
it
put
was
him at 7.
okay. So there's 2 people that didn't put him in dead flipping last.
And Ducky too.
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
There's 3 of us, 4 of us total.
Still, my number 1 couldn't pull it out of number 8.
No.
You will all see
a hole.
they are not the worst team in the league. Okay, in a reality where maybe not everything goes the way it should, I get it. They're not going to win every game. They are not going to be the worst team in this league. I won't say who
No, I agree. The
will
Brahmas
be.
are.
That's fine with me.
So here's my reasoning for Houston being down low right now is, for one, like I kind of mentioned earlier, with their defense, there's a lot of questions there. And there's a lot of those questions for the offense because now they have a brand new quarterback room. And of course, those guys are talented. I mean, Reed Sinnett is a guy that I think could do a lot of damage in this league. And so is Nolan Henderson. And I also think Jarrett Garantano's got a chance as well. The problem for me with the Roughnecks is it's a lot of unproven guys on their roster. A lot of guys that we haven't really seen do much on whether it's in the NFL or in the spring football scene. And one of the main reasons why I put the Roughnecks that low, and you're not going to like to hear this, but I'm not sold on Curtis Johnson. I thought he had some high moments last season, and I thought he had some really low moments. He had a lot of questionable decisions, and some decisions down the stretch cost them their season. You know, you look at a game in Week 10 where Kenji Bahar had the team driving against New Orleans, and they get in the red zone, and he pulls out Kenji and throws in Montel Cozart, and Cozart proceeds to throw an interception on the next play, and it kills a great drive. And they end up losing that game by 1 score, and they miss out on the playoffs. That, to me, that's the type of stuff that cannot happen this year. Those are the types of things, obviously, that cost you a season. So that, for me, I really hope Curtis Johnson doesn't do those same things this year.
Well, that's why he's referring to himself as CJ Johnson now. He had to make a slight little adjustment, and that's all it's going to take. Now, instead of Coach Curtis, it's Coach CJ Johnson. And somehow that, if you take CJ plus J, that equals W. Because we're going to get 12 of them, baby. Rough them up. This is algebra. I mean, this feels like this stuff you learn in like 2nd grade. C J plus J equals W.
Is this jamming a hexagon into a triangle hole or something?
Guys, I can
don't
only do so
understand.
much. I need somebody else to.
I don't understand. I'm going to move off the Houston thing because I think the more interesting part about these were actually the debate, and this made good discussion online. Who's better, Memphis or St. Louis on paper? I thought that was the one that got a lot of talking points. Now, we got a lot of consistency with Birmingham, DC at 1-2, and I think Arlington was a consistent anywhere from like mostly 6 to anywhere between 5-7. Same with Michigan. Michigan was about like anywhere from like 4 to 7. It was kind of all over the place. But like Memphis and St. Louis, our guys in our staff traded blows all over the place with this. Couldn't really decide. I think it's the best debate out of the rankings this week and moving forward because these rosters, you can make cases for both right now.
Interestingly enough, this power ranking actually mirrors your rankings exactly, James, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm very proud.
Me and Zach are close.
Yes.
Zach flipped Memphis and St. Louis, and I flipped Houston and San Antonio. Otherwise, pretty much exactly. So I feel pretty justified in my power rankings.
And let me just say this. I put Memphis at number 2, right? So for all the people that are angry
Above
about these
Birmingham and DC?
hell yeah, I did. Dude, Coach Flip. Here's the difference between Coach Flip and every other coach in the UFL right now. Coach Flip was on around the UFL. So that automatically, I mean, he's got 50 points here. He's got more points than any other coach. So I weighed that in my decision. Now, when Coach CJ Johnson comes on the show, it won't really impact my ratings that much because Houston's already number 1, but it might impact yours. But I have Birmingham at number 3, DC at number 4, Michigan at number 5, which
Imagine not
stands
having
steady.
a 2-time champ in your top 2.
Well, I mean, wrong league.
That-
We're not playing for the United States Football League anymore,
Oh,
buddy.
this ends
This
up-
is the United Football League, and the Roughnecks run this place. But yeah, I had Arlington second to last. San Antonio is who I had last. And mainly because Dormady. I have more questions around him than any of the quarterbacks in the league. And I don't know. We'll see. They have to prove to me. But as I'm looking at this now, the C of Houston in that number 8 spot is despicable. And it's what saddens me the most now that I'm looking at this is there's nobody in the A seed unless except Texas teams. Houston, San Antonio, Arlington. Come on now, guys.
Wow, we really are hating on Texas. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of buried. Actually, I thought I have in the chat, Jorge Rosales here saying, I think experts are underestimating Bob Stoops. Are we underestimating Bob Stoops' squad for the coaching staff alone?
I want to give them credit because obviously he did what he needed to do. Like everybody can trash them for being 4-6. Obviously, as a fan of a team that went 4-6 last year to get into the playoffs, I can't be too harsh on that. But I mean, the team wasn't dominant. They lost, former guest of the show, TJ Barnes. So they lose that big piece on the defensive line, and they lose Hayes. And I'm just still not a big fan of Arlington as a whole. They get the Birmingham treatment again because they get to just pretty much stay, only team to stay, not have to travel for 5 weeks. But I still don't think that's enough.
I feel the interesting thing about Arlington is that, like you said, if they would have lost that championship game, I feel like everybody would be like, oh yeah, they're 6th, they might be 7th.
Yeah.
It's the champion. They got hot for one game. I mean, they were not playing good football really throughout the entire season. Luis came in and did some great things. I mean, Perez deserves all the credit because he changed the attitude in that locker room. Mm-hmm. He came in. They changed the playbook for him. Like, they changed the game plan. You look, and if you go back and rewatch some of those Arlington games from earlier in the season, like against St. Louis is a good example of that, where they just ran the ball a lot. They didn't really take any deep shots. Then when Luis comes in, they really changed things around where Luis was taking deep shots. They were opening up the passing game. And, of course, part of that is the fact that Perez is just that guy. But I don't know. It's one of those things where Arlington wouldn't have even made the playoffs if that South Division wasn't so awful. Like, the Brahmas and the Guardians were so atrociously bad that Arlington got in. So I don't know. I feel like now that you have some of these talented USFL teams in there, like Memphis and Michigan, I don't know. For me, and like you said, the power rankings reflect everything that I put. Michigan edges out Arlington for me simply because I think that they are a bit more complete across the board. That's a team I really like the roster that Steve Kazor and Mike Nolan have put together, and the quarterback room, the running back room, the wide receiver room, everything there is stacked. That's a toss up, though. I feel like that could change at any point, and it's really going to change depending on who gets cut.
Right. Yeah. The next version of these power rankings will be interesting to see. And hopefully you guys shift the Roughnecks a little bit high. I still find it hard to believe the last team in the league. No. But anyway, sorry, Zach. Go on.
Oh, I'm good. I was just think I've got that freaking Houston Roughnecks secondary logo stuck in my head. The gears jammed. I'm hearing it so damn much on the show today.
Have you guys noticed? I think our friend Luke brought it up online. But have you noticed they've been using the secondary logos a lot more? Like I've noticed it throughout training camp with like the name badges and things like that, and the different social media posts. I, for one, am not angry at that. I do like, I mean, if you're going to have the secondary logo, might as well use it, right? Although I still think Arlington should switch back to make their secondary their primary, but hey, you know what? I get it. You want to, I don't even know what you want to do. I think everybody agrees though. The original Renegades logo is the one to go with, but prescription it up, sign you up.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I think that's good. They to me they were underutilized in both leagues last year. So if we want to see that, I like seeing that promotion anyway. And I thought our own Luke Miller, I talked about a great segment here, and I think that Nick here has a great point on this, along with some more rankings talk. Is Luke Miller even put a great ranking piece together on the secondary logos that I thought was pretty solid on Twitter.
Yep. Yeah. And this is why I love the spring football stuff. There's so much content going into it. Sorry, Nick, go on.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to comment on the power rankings, because I feel like I'm on an island by myself here about this. San Antonio, people are sleeping on San Antonio. I mean, obviously I think it has a lot to do with the quarterback situation being a little bit in flux. But as you're just looking at the roster as a whole, besides quarterback, it is probably a top 3 talent roster wise. I mean,
you have that number 5.
Yes, but that's only because of the quarterback. And that's the thing is, like, I'm not completely sold on Dormady, but if he's even decent, I think they're in the playoff hunt, because you look at receiver, they've got John Trey Kirkland, they got Marquez Stevenson at running back, they've got Anthony McFarland, which if you're looking for a hot take, I think he's going to be the best running back in the UFL this year. Jalen Samuels, Cody Latimer. There's a lot of talent there. Defensively, it's the same thing. So many former draft picks. I just think that people really are overlooking them. The one issue that you see is maybe they're a little bit too expansion in that, like, it's a brand new roster. Other teams have a little bit more of a leg to stand on from previous seasons. But to me, I think just talent wise, I think you have to put them above Michigan and Arlington for me personally.
I mean, that's why I can't wait. I really can't wait until the next version of this power rankings, because, maybe I won't put Houston at number 1 next time. Maybe we'll have to see. But I'm more curious to see how these teams shape up, because what'll be more fun is at the end of the season when we can go back to this video right here and look at Houston being number 8. I mean, get out of here. I get Stallions being number 1. Don't get me wrong. I get it. Defenders even. I get it. They were in the championship. I just can't get over the Houston Roughnecks being the last team in. Anyway.
I gave you a full explanation, but
no, that's fine. That's fine. But this is why I love that this is here. It's live. We're never deleting this video. In fact, we are going to talk about it at the end of the season, and whether I'm right or wrong, but we all know the answer. 12-0. That's the answer. CJ plus J equals W. 12 of them to be exact. Any final thoughts on power rankings? I mean, for a show that we didn't have a guest and weren't sure about, we're like 25 minutes over here, which is not, I guess,
Double
not
overtime.
technically over, but yeah, it's OT. Any other final thoughts in overtime here?
My thoughts would be that the top two are the top two for a reason. Birmingham is the team and has always been the team to beat in the USFL. And DC was the team to beat in the XFL. And obviously Arlington did that. They played a great game. They got the revenge on the Defenders after losing to them in week 9. So we'll see. We'll see. But I feel like DC and Birmingham are still the top two teams just because of what they accomplished the last couple of years.
I'll be honest. I know I was done with my piece, but so just kind of piggyback off what Thorne said earlier on the team to watch. I'll be honest. My team to watch, and this is why I had them at number 2, is the Showboats. I mean, you got Case Cookus. I mean, we talked about this with the draft. The Showboats and Coach Flip. I mean, he really re-envisioned that team for him and his coaching staff. So I mean. That's why I
feel like you have
2.
to beat the team to surpass them, you know?
Sure.
Those are the teams to beat, and now the other 6 teams have to go out and play them and beat them in order to hop them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
That's my take.
Yeah. No, but
Who wants to listen to a short guy? I get it.
Any other thoughts on the power rankings here?
Yeah, I'll go. Like obviously with PFN, we actually have put some respect on the Panthers here. I think everybody else generally probably has them 6, mostly 7 and 8. And honestly, I get it, but I said it a million times, and I'll continue to say it a million times. I loved the roster that we actually had last year. That was there were just some pieces. There's some like Cole Murphy said to you, James, in your interview, like. Such a good team, such a good roster. Like they were so close, but they just didn't fully click. And they lost some tough games. Honestly, they were in every single game until the fourth quarter. They weren't, right nipping at the heels of the other team. They were within a couple scores, but still within that striking zone. Especially with how offensive friendly these leagues are. So like they were never truly out of it. Now that they have probably a better offensive scheme, we only have 1 offensive lineman that returns from 2022. So we have pretty much a complete new set of guys competing for a job. We have a bunch of new wideouts. Our defense is scary. Like it, I get why people are doubting it, and I know Mike Nolan is Mike Nolan, but now we actually have a second year under a head coach. I think there's a lot of promise there, and if they can put it together, I think number 5 is actually slander. But I'll admit, it is kind of a big if.
Having Etling or EJ Perry to be the QB behind center who's mobile will help, because, I mean, it's one thing that was damned if you do, damned if you don't with Josh Love last year, is he's a statue. Even with how spring football leagues are, line plays at a premium, having 2 guys that are basically competing for that spot that both can be maneuverable and get out of the pocket and make things work with their legs, as we saw with EJ, as Danny's done in preseason games in the past, that's a bonus. So you can at least mitigate some of the disasters that could happen if, for some reason, this new line can't put it together. So do want to see how well they can manage that, because you can mitigate some, but you can't mitigate everything. So that's the hope, is don't make it a complete train wreck or a piece of paper to run through. That's what I'm looking at.
Right on. Another fun week, though, and we have still just under 5 weeks to go. So the conversation is going to be hot and heavy as we head into kickoff weekend. So this is another reason you guys need to be subscribed. Make sure you click the bell, you get the morale, see when we go live, because this is just the first power ranking of the season. We've all had our debate. We've had our fun. I had some fun with it. But like I said, it is going to be interesting to watch all of you guys change your tune on the Roughnecks as we go out throughout the season. And I'm going to be interested to see which ones I'm wrong about below the Roughnecks. Right? Like, are the Showboats that team? Are they re-envisioned and ready to go, or are they going to have a hard time getting past, the Roughnecks and because the Stallions are right there too. This is going to be a tough league. I mean, just because your team isn't winning doesn't mean that they're not good, right? I don't think we're going to see, and again, no offense to any of the players that were on the Guardians or the Vipers last year, but I don't think we're going to see a team like that this year. I think every team is going to be competitive. The standings at the end of the year might not reflect that, because I think games have the opportunity to be a lot closer to where you could see what happened to the Gamblers year one, where you're kind of leading the way, but you get those last minute losses. It's tough to see, but it'll be interesting to see how these power rankings change throughout the season. And I can only hope, like I said, the Roughnecks just don't end up in last place in reality. Please, just let that happen, and I'll be happy. But we all know, number one, 12-0. We'll see. I think that's it. I think that's the gauntlet. I think we covered all the topics. We'll go through the roundtable, I guess, final thoughts, or, let everybody know where they can find you on social media. I'll just go clockwise here. James, final thoughts. Where can people find you?
Yeah, everyone can find me at James Larson PFN on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. Of course, lots of articles on pfnewsroom.com, the leaders in spring football news. So check those out. And yeah, I'm excited to see, a lot of these storylines that we just talked about. A lot's going to come to fruition here the next couple weeks. So March 10th is that first cut down date. And they're going to be going from 75 to 58. So there's going to be a lot of shocking names in that list, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yep. 2 weeks from now, make sure you're tuned in, because it's going to be that's going to be a big show to be talking. With a lot of discussion to be had, rather. Jake, final thoughts. Where can people find you?
Well, everybody can find me at UFL Shadow on all of the platforms, but generally Instagram and Twitter is where you're going to see most of the activity. But yeah, like James said, it's going to be a fun training camp. Going to be, I'm sure we're going to still see plenty of roster moves, and going to keep my eyes glued to that, because I really want to see what Nolan and every team does with the rosters. And of course, get yourself a football. Gorgeous.
Perfect.
Like it may not be as nice as the XFL 2020 or even the USFL's last year, the last 2 years, but really good stuff by Big Game. I'm gonna, been spending all my money on that, so.
I know, man, it'll get your wallet, won't it? Especially those footballs are like $160, but they are top quality. Big Game always produces, like Zach brought up last week. I do miss the X Pebble technology, but I get why we don't have it. There's really no X in the league name anymore. But Zach, speaking of you, final thoughts, where can people find you?
Yeah, shame no more to X Pebble Technology. You can follow me at Zach Kyleman, but I'm really going to spend my time to say, look, follow these people that are on here. They put in a lot of hard work. James, Nick, Jake, they do all great stuff for us behind the scenes. The ref's working his tail off behind the scenes, getting us with spring stock set up here and running this website. Please give these people the time. I know I'm trying to promote. You're giving me time to promote myself, but I'm telling you, these guys are what make this site work really well. Give them a follow if you do. Trust me, you're not going to regret it.
Sign you up. And last,
you deserve some points for that.
Oh yeah, we got points coming up after this. You good call out. Before we get to points, Thorn, last thoughts, final thoughts.
You can check me out at Thorn PFN on Twitter. That's really where I have all my stuff. I just did an article predicting 50-man rosters for every team. Like half of them are already outdated, which is fun. Roster moves are happening quick, but yeah, also my roster doc, that's the thing I put the most time and effort into. You can see all the rosters. I recently added all the like NFL free agents that were in spring leagues. So if you want to look at that stuff, that's also there too. So yeah.
Excellent. Now, what everybody's been waiting for, really, the points. We got the points. So I'm going to start actually with you, Jake, and Zach. I'm going to give you both 3 points. Let me get those down here. So we got Jake and Zach, 3 points. So I'm going to give you 1 point each for being on the show naturally. And then I'm going to give you 2 points, one for each one of the Roughnecks losses you're going to take this year.
My God.
So we got 3 points for you guys.
My God.
Let's see. Thorn, I mean, you're coming in clutch. Like I said, we had Ducky's kind of out doing some things. Mel's is out doing some things. So you came in, clutch being here. Let's see, where are you? You're at 12 points now. So I'm going to give you a number, what is that? 4. So we're going to bring you up to 16. Let me just cross that out. James, did I give you points? No, I didn't give you points yet, did I? I should have just skipped over. Okay, no, we got to give James some points. I mean, first and foremost, I'm going to give you a point just for all the things you're doing behind the scenes, getting articles out, talking to people, trying to get people scheduled. I know this week was especially tough because it's training camp, but we were close. And you were the guy that were going to get us there. I'm going to give you a couple. Let's see. I'm going to give you 3 more points. Oh, geez. Oh, shoot. Uh-oh. Hold on.
What a save. That's a
yeah.
pro right there,
man. Where are you, James?
Complete, man.
There we go. Okay. Now I almost. Okay. I'll fix that later. I'm going to have to write a new list now. I don't remember the reasons I'm giving you the points, but their points are already on paper. So sign you up. Mainly for all the hard work. And I mean, you kept us, you kept me on track as much as you could today. So I appreciate that. Now I'm debating. I really, I know I'm in the host chair, so it's hard to say no. I am going to refrain. I will say everything in me wants to give me 12 points this week, one for each win. But I'm going to hold back. I'm going to give myself, let's see. Thorn, what's your team again?
DC.
And James, did you pick a team?
I'm Switzerland.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so let's see. Okay, I'll give myself 3 points then. 1 for each win on your teams. James, I won't include you because you're Switzerland. So one Panthers loss for Jake, 1 Panthers loss for Zach, and of course a DC loss for you. So that I'm still in dead last though, guys. So don't feel bad. But there we go. That's the points for the week. And this is another reason you need to tune in next week because sooner or later I'm going to start using my points. I'm kind of waiting for Ducky to come back. So you just wait. We got some point action, and you guys don't even know what that means yet, but I'm going to use them, and then you'll see what it means. But I think that's it for this time, guys. Again, make sure you subscribe. Tune in every week, 6 p.m. Eastern every Monday. And we should have a new episode of the UFL podcast coming up soon. And, of course, Spring Stock 3, March 30th, March 31st. You won't want to miss it. But until next time, guys, sign you